Hey everybody, welcome back to Movies You Missed podcast. For those of you that are brand new, welcome. I'm John.
And I'm Vee.
How you doing today, Vee?
I'm doing really well and really looking forward to getting into yet another new genre for this podcast.
As am I. I think this is going to be quite an entertaining one. For those of you that are brand new to Movies You Missed podcast, Vee and I have 25 years collectively between us in the entertainment industry. We have spent a lot of time on several different sets in several different capacities. We came together several months ago to jump on this podcast, and we've been having a great time doing it. We also do not do any spoilers on this podcast. You will not get the ends of any movies. You will not get the twists of any movies. You will not get anything like that, but you'll get good conversation. You'll get some trivia behind the scenes, and maybe one of us has worked on the movie we're watching this week. You never know.
Absolutely. Great summary, man.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into the two movies that we selected this week, do you have any updates or new movies you've seen recently?
No, I don't.
Oh, you're too busy.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have not been in the movies since 3,000 Years of Longing, but I do have my tickets for this Friday evening at the 4DX Real D 3D Theater in Boise, Idaho, to see the re-release of James Cameron's Avatar.
You are so excited.
I can't fucking wait, because the next morning, Amy and I fly to Walt Disney World for 10 days, and we are going to go to Animal Kingdom, where I'm going to spend my entire day in Pandora.
Nice.
Absolutely. Well, not my entire day, but majority of the day.
What a good tie-in.
I know. It's so awesome. And this is actually a movie that my wife is going to go with me to see. So I'm very excited to actually see this movie in the theaters with her for the first time.
Now, this movie holds a very special place in yours and my hearts because it was a movie that we went and saw together, and one of the first movies we ever actually went into theaters and watched together.
Yes, indeed.
And kind of rejuvenated our friendship after we had drifted apart a little bit in our 20s, just because we got really busy, not because anything happened.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see the sequel with you.
Yes.
In December.
That's going to be a blast. I'm very much looking forward to a wintry day of Avatar, because, we're likely going to have to watch the first one at home first.
Oh, I think that's a great idea, and that's usually what I like to do when I'm about to see a sequel in the theaters.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, then we are agreed.
And yeah, we have a plan.
Excellent. That's going to be a fun day.
Great. And I'm sure we'll talk about it on the podcast in December when that happens.
Absolutely. We're going to have to, because just like us, the entire world will go see Avatar Way of Water, regardless of if people are like, that movie's going to suck. You're going to go see it.
Probably. I mean, knowing James Cameron, he's got some magical office draw.
Box office king.
He is. But before December and Avatar 2 happens, we are here today to talk about movie musicals.
Yes, we are. And boy, what a great time both of these films are.
I was so happy that we did this right before our month of horror movies.
Me too. We needed a palate cleanser. We needed something to really sugarcoat us and our listeners before we jumped into some pretty intense stuff in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, and so I'm glad we went with the musical genre, and the nice thing is that both of these movies, the other person hadn't seen before.
That's right. I had not seen your pick, but I had always wanted to, and I'm really glad that it was the one that you chose and landed on when we were discussing this a couple of weeks ago.
Fabulous. And I had not seen yours, and I had always wanted to as well. So, win-win.
Wonderful winning indeed. And V, I believe we start with your pick this week, if I'm not mistaken.
We do. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in.
I think you should.
My pick for our musical episode is 2019's Elton John biopic called Rocketman. What a glorious film this is.
It really is quite a spectacle. And I've only said that about a few films that we've talked about on this podcast, but this really was a blast.
It absolutely is. And the name's even in the title. It is a blast. You are absolutely right. It does everything that I think Bohemian Rhapsody fell short on.
I agree with you completely. After about 25 minutes into Rocketman, I already said to myself that it was 1,000 times better than Bohemian Rhapsody was.
It is, and that is our opinion, and it's absolutely okay if some of our listeners loved Bohemian Rhapsody and either enjoyed this film as well or didn't like this film at all. But in our opinion, we certainly think Rocketman is superior.
I do think that, yes.
To dive into Rocketman and give our audience an idea of what this film is about, it starts off, God, what a start.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Movie starts with a bang and doesn't let up. It is a fantastic story with great pacing and such an immersive experience.
It really was immersive from the get-go. I really liked the opening credits and the slow-motion walk down the hallway in the costume. I really liked the orchestrated version of one of his very most popular songs.
Mm-hmm. And so it starts with an adult Elton John, played by Taron Egerton, bursting through these double doors of a hallway. He's backlit and wearing this very fantastical costume that has wings and devil horns, and it's a beautiful metaphor for the journey that Elton John takes through this movie, because he starts off very broken. The audience soon finds out is that he's walking down the hallway of a treatment center for addictions, and then walks into this group therapy room. And throughout this movie, the story keeps coming back to this room with this adult Elton John telling the story of his life. And slowly but surely, he starts to shed this costume that is wings, and it's red, and it has flames on it, and like I said, devil horns. And I think that's very metaphorical for the healing process that he is doing throughout this movie.
I agree. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking when I was watching the evolution of every time we would go back into that room with him.
And once we settle into this group therapy session, Elton John starts telling everyone the story of his life. And so we are transported back in time to when he is a very young boy. And it shows his quite loveless family life. He has a very harsh mother who is very bitter, and a absolutely absentee father who doesn't like being around, seems to not like his son at all, not affectionate.
Yeah.
And it's just very sad, and thankfully he has a sweet grandma who's living with them. But very quickly he hears a song on the radio and walks over to the piano and plays the song automatically. This boy has a perfect ear, and it just stops every adult in the house going, "Oh shit."
Yeah,
which is very cool. And they very quickly discover that he has an innate talent. He is a prodigy. They start him on piano lessons, and then he gets into the Royal Academy of Music, and we start going through Elton John's childhood, playing music, getting really comfortable, and very quickly this movie becomes a musical. This is a full musical where the stars sing to actually move the plot along sometimes, but all of the music is Elton John's hits. It's all very recognizable music and very fun, and it's very seamless too.
It really is. And I going back to his childhood days, I think my favorite part is when he goes to the audition and he hears the instructor playing, and then she stops, and then he sits down and plays it up until then. She goes, "Well, keep going." And he goes, "Well, that's where you stopped." Yeah. I don't know the song, so it's like, holy shit, man. Yeah. Like, you really only heard it that one time, and you are able, without even having seen the keys, it's like he got that shit down.
And I have a friend named Jason who has a perfect ear who can do that.
Oh, wow.
He cannot read music, but if he hears a song, he can step up to a piano and play it.
That's wild.
It's insane. I've never seen it any other time but that.
That's nuts. I've played the trumpet and the guitar and the violin, and I have been able to play songs on the violin. I haven't touched a violin in maybe 20 years. I recently played the trumpet, and I was starting again slowly to read music. So the fact that like people are able to do that is pretty incredible.
Yes, I agree. I played a lot of music throughout my childhood and growing up, including the trumpet, actually.
Hey.
Yeah.
I love the trumpet.
It's a lot of fun, especially when I was in marching band and jazz band. It's fun to play the trumpet in those.
I only played it in junior high. I went to get, this is actually a very funny and true story. I went to orientation for high school, freshman year, And I was so excited to continue playing the trumpet. I went over to the band room. There was a huge line of people, and I found out it was seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen, and I was in the freshman line. And as I get up to the table, that I think I'm going to sign up for a band class for, the person in front of me is getting measured. And I was like, what's going on here? Why is he getting measured? And they're like, oh, it's for the uniforms. And I said, what uniforms? And they said, marching band uniforms. And I said, is that the only band that this school has? And they said, yeah. I said, what does the uniform look like? They pointed to it, and I turned around and walked out. And I said to my dad, who was there with me, I said, Dad, I'm not wearing a uniform and playing the trumpet. I need another elective. And that's when I went into the swim team. So no offense to your uniform in high school playing jazz band or anything like that, but it was not for me to have that hat with the feathers and the blue whatever. Not for me.
Band and swimming are both valiant pursuits. Either one is fine.
Very. Yeah, no, absolutely.
So thankfully Elton John doesn't have to wear I was going to say, thankfully, he doesn't have to wear a feathered hat, but he absolutely did
does.
in this movie.
Yes,
and much
did.
more than that, actually.
Oh, hell yeah.
Very flamboyant, very well known for his costumes and his stage presence. And Elton John is his stage name. It is not his original birth name, so you find that out in the movie as well. And so we continue on learning about Elton John as he grows up and starts to really put himself out there. He starts to play at local bars and even becomes a backup musician for soul musicians from America. And this is the 60s,
that was wild.
Which was great. And he really starts to develop his own sound and who he is as a performer. Very early on, we start to get hints of Elton John's sexuality. And this movie is very honest and very raw about what Elton John did throughout his life. And again, this is one of the reasons why we both like this movie much more than Bohemian Rhapsody. Elton John is very open about using tons of drugs.
Yeah.
And wanted to make sure his biopic reflected that. He's been sober for over 28 years, but he absolutely had drug problems. He also is an openly gay man. And he wanted that shown in the movie too, especially as he was growing up in the 60s and 70s. And it is reflected in the movie. It's just a much more honest portrayal of this wonderful artist. And I actually think it helps put a lot of heart into this movie because of the honesty.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you on that 100%.
And so as he's growing up and as he's becoming more and more confident with his musical ability and his playing in a band and things like that, he actually goes to a record producer and says, hey, I'm a piano player. I'm looking for work. He's like, yeah, I've got a million piano players. Do you write music? He's like, well, I write music, but I can't think of any words to any of my songs. And he kind of gets a brush off, which is very typical, of course, as you're starting out in the entertainment industry. And the guy's like, look, here's one of our writers who submitted a bunch of lyrics and it needs music put to it. Take this envelope and see what you can do with it. And it's just by chance, it is the lyrics written by a man named Bernie Taupin, who becomes Elton John's best friend and musical co-writer for the rest of his career.
So fucking awesome.
So cool.
I
oh my
that.
God, it was so good.
And who plays Bernie, by the way, V?
Jamie Bell plays Bernie, who was in Billy Elliot and my pick a few episodes ago.
So awesome.
Great actor. I loved him in this movie. How they played off each other was so beautiful. It really did seem like a true friendship.
It really did. I thought Jamie Bell was great, and Taron Egerton as Elton John really did do a pretty immersive job. And like you said, I mean, you used the word already, immersive, but it only is immersive because not only is the makeup right, not only are the costumes right, or the glasses, or the hair, the teeth.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean,
full
that's the
embodiment.
one thing. Yeah, the one thing, again, going back to Bohemian Rhapsody, was Rami Malek's teeth were distracting as fuck.
They were.
It wasn't, it almost looked like he couldn't keep the vampire teeth in his mouth. And, you know,
they just
we all
very
know that.
Fake. Very obviously
Freddie
fake.
Mercury had chompers. We all know this. But they weren't just, they were so Hollywoodized and
so,
so much like he could barely close his mouth around him, which I thought was kind of hilarious. But anyway, Taron Egerton really, and he just really encapsulated everything. I mean, he had the walk down and he had the voice down. There were wide shots where I thought I was watching stock footage of an old Elton John concert, you know, especially when he's doing Rocketman in the baseball suit and he sits down at the piano.
Yes.
And I was just like, my gosh, is this a true Elton John concert or is this for the movie? And sure enough, it was for the fucking movie.
Yes, and I love that this movie covers his whole life and, like I said, gets into the nitty-gritty of it. So once he has this writing partner, they really hit it off. They really things start moving along quite quickly.
Yeah, it was great.
They write a bunch of music for an album, and they are sent by their record producer to LA because his friend Doug Weston owns the Troubadour, which is a very famous spot in LA for musical acts and concerts.
Yes, it is. Have you ever seen a show there?
I have, actually.
Oh, awesome. Good. I've seen a few.
Yeah, and I really love going to concerts and have enjoyed a lot of the different venues in LA as well.
Awesome. I've been to the Troubadour only 3 or 4 different times, and one of the last times I was there, I saw a band called Deaf Heaven. They're a black metal band with a sound very similar to Explosions in the Sky, if anybody knows who they are.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so you know Explosions in the Sky.
Yes,
so, yeah.
I do, yeah.
Deaf Heaven is Explosions in the Sky with black metal lyrics, and it is amazing.
Really?
Yeah, it's fucking great. I've seen them several times. They actually were an opening band for Lamb of God several years ago when Amy moved in down at the Palladium on Sunset Boulevard. The Troubadour is a killer fucking venue.
Yes. Except for parking, but that's true of all
Oh,
of LA.
Jesus Christ. The parking is so horrendous. It's on Santa Monica Boulevard, just on the cusp of Beverly Hills.
No parking.
You're not going to find anywhere to fucking park. And that goes, in a way with the authenticity of when we were talking about She's Out of My League, how he's always parking in front of her building. This movie, they have their van parked right up front. That doesn't even happen either. They don't get to offload
60s.
right on the front. No,
Even in the 60s, they couldn't.
Not on Santa Monica Boulevard. They're pulling around to the back alleyway where they have like 4 dumpsters for 5 different restaurants.
Exactly. But that scene is one of my favorites of the movie.
Oh,
Troubadour is one of his
amazing
first big performances as Elton John, and it is, just like the rest of the movie, magical.
It really fucking is. And I love how it all leads up because they're there. Elton John is like in the back getting ready. And Bernie comes back and he goes, I was just talking to the lead from Beach Boys. And then Elton John's like has a freak out moment. And then his quote unquote like assistant manager comes up to him at the bathroom stalls like, get up there, you fucking twat. And then Elton John opens the door. He goes, well, all right, let's go then. And I just love that shit. And then it gets up there, and yeah, like you said, I loved that entire sequence from
Goosebumps.
Oh man,
every time I
absolutely.
watch it.
And I rented this on Apple, so it was in 4K Ultra HD with the HD 10 plus audio, And I had my soundbar cranked at least 6 bubbles, and my room was shaking. I was just like fucking into it. I was like, man, now I got to buy some Elton John vinyl.
Right?
Like now I fucking do. There's no question in my mind. If I'm anywhere and I see an Elton John vinyl, I'm buying it.
And the vinyl of this movie.
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah.
Because Taron Egerton does all of his own singing in this movie.
Another talented human being.
Oh, God.
Can walk the walk, can sing the sing.
And then because this is a musical, other actors in the movie start chiming in throughout it. And you're like, God damn it, they can sing too? Fucking talented humans.
Oh, yeah.
You're
so
gorgeous,
awesome.
you're a good actor, and you can sing? Fuck.
I know. And actually, I didn't do a whole lot of research, any on this one, because this was your pick. But did Taron learn any piano?
Yes, he did play the piano for most bits.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, because of course, right? God.
Well, that, you can only
awesome.
hope,
Yeah,
like you really can.
No, it's
And
amazing.
I
I
really,
say this with love. It's just like, oh my God, it's just like share some talent. Fuck.
it's badass because you think too, how long the production was. Now, granted, a movie like this, production, principal photography is what it's called, not necessarily production, because production can go post-production, pre-production is all production. But when you're in principal photography and the camera stop rolling, that's when a lot of people think it's over, and then you have months of rehearsals before you even start shooting. So like even like these big movies like Fast and the Furious, Top Gun Maverick, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, maybe even The Woman King with Viola Davis, which just came out, which I really, really have got to see in theaters. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a movie like this, there was a solid handful of months where Taron Egerton was locked away, learning the piano, taking lessons, taking voice lessons, unless he was already an accomplished singer. I don't know much about him as an actor.
He is an accomplished singer.
Oh, there you go. So he had that going for him. And I like that he didn't push to sound exactly like Elton John. There was a difference in voice, but it worked because there was still that emphasis, that pathos, and that presence.
Yes.
In the entertainment industry, some people might say that mise en scène.
Yes, exactly. And you have a much better French accent than I do.
Merci. Yes.
There you go. And Elton John said to Taron, of course, this is a biopic about me, but I really want you to put your own flavor on it. And so, yes, I think he sang very similarly to Elton John. I do think it's very comparable. The rest of it, though, dead ringer for Elton John. He looked like him. He talked like him. He walked like him. It was incredible. And so he did a great job being a biopic of a living person, embodying this person. It was great. And so they are at the Troubadour. It is a show that is his first American show. It's his first big show. It goes phenomenally well. And this is where he meets John Reed, who will be his manager for a good chunk of his career. And I will go ahead and spoil this part because it's really obvious from the get-go, and it is a true story, so a lot of people already know this. What a fucking snake.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
God, fuck that guy.
There's always one,
Right? Just a greedy bastard.
Yeah.
And Elton John then becomes incredibly popular around the world. He has #1 albums. He has #1 songs. He starts making tons and tons of money. He buys a huge house in Los Angeles. And things seem to be going well, but for the audience and for the behind the scenes, things are definitely starting to crack. And he starts using lots of drugs. He's extremely depressed. And he just starts to spiral way out of control, which is exacerbated by the fact that he's a public figure and he's gay.
Right.
Hiding it because it's the 60s and now 70s and now 80s.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly sad, and there's a lot of turmoil tied to that. And again, Taron Egerton does that very well too, and I'm really glad they told those aspects of the story.
As am I, yes. I actually liked the moment when he calls his mother and tells her. I
really did too, and the first time I watched it, I was like, fuck. But then the second and third time I watched this movie, I was like, that isn't the worst response you could ever get.
Right, yeah. And I gotta be honest, I didn't like Bryce Dallas Howard as his mother.
So this is the only role of hers that I really like.
And that's fascinating to me because I thought her accent was terrible.
Because I thought it was actually not that bad.
Oh, so weird. Spend more time in London then. No, I don't know. No, I just thought like watching it, when she came on screen, I kind of was like, wait a minute, because I texted you actually immediately.
Right.
And I was thinking to myself, there's no way that Vee's okay with this.
Yeah,
but apparently you are.
She plays really good cold-hearted woman though.
Yeah, nothing against her there. It just was like, there's so many British actresses that could have been a little bit more dripping with disdain, I guess.
Fair
I don't know.
point.
There's something.
Fair point.
I don't know. Again, that's just my opinion, though.
And for any of our repeat listeners, you know how much we both dislike, and now it's loathe for John, but yes. Dislike to the Jurassic World series.
Yes.
Because it is a stain on his favorite movie of all time, Jurassic Park. Bryce Dallas Howard is known for the Jurassic World series. She is the female lead in that series, opposite Chris Pratt. There are other fantastic actors in this movie, and Richard Madden plays John Reed, who is Elton John's manager and lover for quite some time throughout his life.
Yeah.
Who most people recognize as Robb Stark from Game of Thrones.
There it is. I was watching this fucking movie, and I'm like, where have I seen these blue eyes?
Oh,
where have I
God.
seen this curly hair?
Beautiful, man. Well, you've also seen
very
him
handsome
in the live-action Cinderella.
Oh my gosh, that's right. He's the prince.
He is the prince.
Yeah, with Lily James, my heart.
Uh-huh.
I love me some Lily James.
He is in the Netflix series Bodyguard, which was very good. And beyond Richard Madden and the other actors I've discussed, a couple more people I want to bring up, including Tate Donovan, who is such a treasure in this movie. He's a very bit part. He plays Doug Weston, the owner of the Troubadour in this film, but he's so good in it. And he says one of my all-time favorite lines in this movie, which is, "Don't be a bummer." I love how he says it. It's so good. And he's just very fun in this movie. Good addition. He is the voice of Hercules on the Hercules animated Disney movie.
No, he's not.
Oh, hell yeah, he is one of my favorite Disney movies.
Wait a minute. Wow. Yeah. That's fucking cool. I really like that movie.
I love that movie. It's one of my favorite Disney movies of all time.
The only reason I'm looking forward to the live action is because Jennifer Hudson is going to be the head of the Muses.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on board.
Yeah, and that's one of those soundtracks that my wife and I gravitate to a lot when we're putting on Disney music in the car is the Hercules soundtrack.
Absolutely.
Quite good.
And another couple movies that Tate Donovan has been in, he is probably most recognizable from Love Potion No. 9 with Sandra Bullock, which was an adorable rom-com.
Never saw that one.
I don't know how it's aged. I haven't seen it in years, but it was sweet when it came out.
Huh.
He's also in a movie you hate, Manchester by the Sea.
Is he really in that?
He's the hockey coach, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that movie sucks.
Yeah, I know you hate it. And lastly, Elton John's original record producer is played by Stephen Graham, who I really like. He's a British actor. He was Tommy in Snatch. He's Jason Statham's friend in Snatch, which is he's so good in it. He's such a dumbass in that movie.
Definitely.
And he is Elton John's original record producer, and he's the one who's like, get something flashy, be a presence on stage, and just don't kill yourself with drugs. Yeah.
I like him too.
Elton John certainly tries to several times in his life.
Yes, yeah, he does.
He really struggles, and I just, again, love how honest Elton John is with his story. Now, Dexter Fletcher directed this movie.
Yeah.
He's an actor and a director. He's transitioned into directing now, but he was Robert De Niro's first mate in Stardust as a pirate.
No way.
Yeah, he's the one that really supports Robert De Niro and was like, "Don't do that, dude." And he's the skinny one.
That's awesome.
He's Soap, one of the friends in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Ah.
He has directed Eddie the Eagle, which is another Taron Egerton movie. Great movie. Yeah. He directed this film. He is in pre-production for Sherlock Holmes 3.
Interesting.
Which is
Took it away from Guy Ritchie, huh?
Very first that I've heard of it, and that is so interesting because he's been in Guy Ritchie films before. So, curious.
Maybe Guy Ritchie tossed his name in a pool or something like that.
Yeah, I'm very, very curious about more information about that film as it comes out. He was also the AD, so for our audience, assistant director on Bohemian Rhapsody.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. That is so interesting. Look at that. He was the assistant director. Well, first or second?
Second AD on Bohemian Rhapsody, which came out before Rocketman, so maybe it gave him some good insight into how to direct a musical biopic and how to be more honest on one.
I would think so, yeah. Wow.
And Lee Hall wrote the story for this movie. Lee has written Billy Elliot, funny enough.
Oh, wow.
Which is why we've heard Lee's name before on this podcast.
Yes.
Warhorse, this movie, and then also Cats, so 3 out of 4 is pretty good.
Yeah, I would say so.
Now, Elton John has a hand in the movie industry as well, He wrote all the music to Disney's The Lion King.
So good.
So good, speaking of Disney soundtracks that we love. Another piece of pop culture that he is really well known for, the song Candle in the Wind, which he played a special rendition of for Princess Diana's funeral.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Which is, even if you don't listen to Elton John, you've probably heard that song.
I imagine so.
He's also referenced in The Rock.
Is he really?
Because when Nick Cage and Tony Todd are facing off, he goes, "Hey, so you ever heard that Elton John song, The Rocketman?" And Tony Todd's like, "I don't listen to that soft-ass shit."
I don't remember that at all.
Tony Todd, who you've worked with in the past, they mentioned Elton John in The Rock.
That is hilarious. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny reference. So, as I mentioned, Taron Egerton does all of his own singing in this film, and has said that his favorite Elton John song, which, by the way, it's Sir Elton John, his favorite song of Elton John's is Your Song, which, if anybody's seen Moulin Rouge, you will recognize it immediately, because it's in that film.
Definitely.
Taron Egerton sang that for his drama school audition. There are actually a lot of links between Taron and Elton John before this movie that I think are pretty coincidental that I'll get into.
Okay.
Including Taron Egerton, who a lot of people will recognize from the Kingsman movies, the newest iteration of Robin Hood, which neither you or I have seen because we heard it was terrible.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of interest.
He's Mad Teddy in the movie Legend, which you actually picked, and we discussed in an earlier episode. And he's also in an animated movie called Sing.
Oh.
It's not a great film. It doesn't have the best message, honestly, but it has some pretty incredible actors in it. So Sing came out in 2016. It's an animated film. He plays a gorilla named Johnny, and it's about a singing competition, hence the title of the movie. And he sings the song I'm Still Standing by Elton John during the finale. And that came out 3 years before Rocketman.
Wow.
So that's an interesting tie-in to Elton John as well.
Yeah, that is.
Now, he wasn't the only one or first one considered for the role of Elton John in this movie.
Oh.
Speaking of Legend, Tom Hardy was attached to star. And
what?
Film went into development for nearly 3 years with him attached to it.
Whoa.
Which would have
Interesting.
been so wrong and so different, and I absolutely would not, I can't even picture that going well.
I don't think I can picture that either.
Not because, I mean, we both love Tom Hardy. We both think he's an incredibly talented actor.
Oh, yeah.
He just has this edge to him that just I don't think would work for Elton John.
I agree with that.
In 2012, Elton John revealed that his top choice to play him in a biopic would be Justin Timberlake.
Oh, gosh.
No.
Really?
And just no. And
interesting.
2 other, thankfully, British actors who were considered for this role were James McAvoy, who we were both big fans of, as well as Daniel Radcliffe.
Ooh, interesting.
Which would have been very interesting. I could see Daniel Radcliffe pulling this off, but I don't know how well he can sing.
I don't know. We'll never know.
No.
Pseudo-universe conversation again.
Pseudo-universe, exactly. And this is the part that really pissed me off, because Taron Egerton did a fantastic job. He pulled all of his weight in this film. He received nominations for Best Actor at the Screen Actors Guild Awards. He also received nomination at the BAFTAs, which are UK's version of the Oscars. He won Best Actor at the Golden Globes. He didn't even receive the Oscar nomination for this role, which is bullshit.
That's ridiculous. Wow. I'm really upset about that one.
Yes. Wholeheartedly agree. I'm right there with you.
Damn.
Total bullshit.
Yeah, big time.
He's very, very good. And one of the biggest challenges that Elton John faced in trying to get this movie off the ground is that so many producers told him they were looking for a PG-13 rated film.
Oh, lame.
Right? And Elton John told them all the same thing. He had not led a PG-13 rated life, which is perfect.
Awesome.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Now, I know that we can take it or leave them in terms of film critics. I know that we always push our audience to like any film that you want. Who cares what other people think or film critics think? If you enjoy a movie, that's all you need to know. But I will say that BBC's film critic Mark Kermode praised Rocketman for taking risks in its portrayal of Elton John in stark contrast to Bohemian Rhapsody. Which is widely criticized for being a sanitized, family-friendly version of his friend Eddie Mercury.
Wow. And that was an R rating, too.
God, I don't know what for, because they said fuck a couple times. Jesus.
Probably, yeah. I know. It was very watered down.
Now, the interesting thing is that John Reid was a very prominent figure in the music industry in the 70s and 80s. He is portrayed in this film by Richard Madden, as I mentioned, who I think would make a great next James Bond, by the way.
Oh.
The interesting thing is that Richard Madden's Game of Thrones co-star, Aidan Gillen, who was Littlefinger in Game of Thrones, portrayed John Reid in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh my gosh. Interesting. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Because he helped manage Freddie Mercury and Queen during part of their heyday as well.
Wow.
He had his hands and everything in UK music in the 80s. Shit. And lastly, Taron Egerton wears 53 different pairs of sunglasses throughout this film.
Wow. 53? That's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
I know that was like one of the big things of his image.
Yeah. And one of my favorite facts about Elton John, after he became sober over 28 years ago, he founded the Elton John AIDS Foundation. And it has raised over $450 million to help people with HIV and AIDS education.
That's intense. Wow. That's badass.
Just love how his story has turned out.
Absolutely. Great fucking movie. Very fascinating life. I really enjoyed every minute of it. The immersive experience of the whole thing was great. The way that they utilized all of the songs to definitely push the story along was really badass. And it's very vibrant and flashy and fun, and that's what Elton John's all about. Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you liked it. Me too. I'll be honest, I kind of felt I was going to like it, but I, also at the same time, you never know, because I was hoping I was going to like Bohemian Rhapsody and other films, and that sometimes doesn't always work out. Exactly. So Rocketman is available to rent on Amazon for $2.99, as well as other streaming services for either $2.99 or $3.99. And with that, I'll pass the baton over to you for your movie pick this week. Sounds good to me. Thank you very much for picking Rocketman. It was on my to-watch list for the last several years, so I'm glad that I was able to finally sit down and watch it and discuss it in length with you. That was a good one. Me too. I chose a film from 2006, and I chose a film written and directed by Bill Condon based on the original Broadway production book by Tom Eyen. This film stars Jennifer Hudson, Anika Noni Rose, Beyonce Knowles, Eddie Murphy, Jamie Foxx, Danny Glover. This is Dreamgirls, ladies and gentlemen. Dreamgirls is set in the 1960s. Dreamgirls is very strongly influenced by the life of Diana Ross and the Supremes. Now, Dreamgirls is a fictitious story, but there are similarities that did happen between this film and Diana Ross and the Supremes, and I'll get into that a little bit, but as a standalone film, this is quite a damn good movie, and the music in this film is pretty fucking fantastic. The film opens up at a talent show where the Dreamettes are about to go on, but they're waiting for one of their members. Her name's Effie, and she hasn't shown up yet, so they keep getting pushed, and then finally she shows up. Finally, they convince who I thought was a great cameo in this movie, Jaleel White, who, if those of you are the age of myself and Vee, would recognize the name, maybe, but you would recognize his face as Steve Urkel from Family Matters. The Dreamettes are trying to win this talent show because the prize is winning a recording on a vinyl record and getting their song played on the radio. They end up not actually winning this talent show, but in the midst of all of this, we meet a young man named Curtis Taylor Jr., and this is played by Jamie Foxx, who, I gotta say, was pretty damn good in this movie. Mm-hmm. Really, really good. Super snaky, super shady, but also at the same time you can't kind of help but love him, because of where he's come from and how he's built himself up. One of those rags to riches stories, no doubt. He had a failing car dealership, and he had the gall and balls, essentially, to just jump in and start running the show. And it really kind of is a fascinating breakdown to see Curtis Taylor Jr.'s character go from running a car dealership to selling all his cars and selling his dealership to create a recording studio in this old car dealership, which is what he does after he offers these ladies, the Dreamettes, who was played by Beyonce Knowles, Jennifer Hudson, and Anika Noni Rose. And my favorite part about actually watching Dreamgirls again was recognizing Anika Noni Rose, because she voices Princess Tiana in The Princess and the Frog, and Princess and the Frog is one of my most favorite Disney movies of the last 15 years. So anyway, they get offered to sing backup for an act named Jimmy Early. And Effie, who was played by Jennifer Hudson, is not into this idea about singing backup. She's the lead singer. The song that they open with is Walk Right Out of My Life, and it is just poppy, and it's so much fun, and Jennifer Hudson just kills it. Those of you that know who Jennifer Hudson is, I truly did not know who she was when I saw Dreamgirls. I just wanted to see Dreamgirls because I like musicals, I like the 60s, I am a Jamie Foxx fan. I also, thought Beyonce was hot, so why not check out this movie? I'm, being honest. The ladies are finally able to convince Effie that singing backup for Jimmy Early is a good idea, and they go and meet Jimmy Early, who is played wonderfully by Eddie fucking Murphy.
I was blown away.
Oh, what a killer performance. And the fact that, again, he does all his own singing. Everybody in this film does their own singing, and that's wonderful. But for those of you that may not know Eddie Murphy's past, in the 80s, he did have a record or two. And if you might know the song, Party All the Time, Party All the Time, Party All the Time. So good. It's such a poppy 80s song. And the music video is hilarious because they're in a recording studio and he's just singing into the microphone.
So 80s.
Oh, yeah. It's just great. So after Effie, Dina, who is played by Beyonce, and Laurel, who is played by Anika Noni Rose, they've been touring a lot, and all Curtis has been saying is that they're going to have their own show. They're going to have their own show. And, this is how it always goes in movies like this, and even in biopics. It happens like, oh, you just do this for us for a little while, and we'll get you your own show. We'll get you your own, your own sitcom, your own this, that, and the other. So these girls, just getting smoke blown up their asses because Curtis is making money off of them. They are quite an entertaining show.
It's because he's literally a car salesman.
Yeah.
He's so slimy in this movie. It's so good.
Oh, yeah. No, but that's the thing that I honestly respect about his character is like he's a car salesman, and now he's working his way up through the ranks of producing musical acts. So finally one night, he tells the girls that they're not going on stage with Jimmy Early. And the reason for this is because the girls are now going to have their own show. Effie is elated because now she's finally going to be in the spotlight. Her voice is going to be heard by the world. Curtis says Dina's going to sing lead. Dina's played by Beyonce Knowles. And, of course, this does not go over well with Effie at all. There's a wonderful musical number that goes on in this entire sequence with her brother, Cece, and Jamie Foxx. It has to do with the embodiment of the fact that Effie has been waiting for her break for so long and been told, yes, it'll happen. And now Dina is going to be the lead of the Dreamettes. And strangely enough, when we find out the reason for this is because Curtis doesn't think that Effie's voice is going to be poppy enough to sell millions of records right off the bat. So Dina's got the poppy voice. Dina also has the look. And for those of you that might have already seen Dreamgirls and know who Jennifer Hudson is, Jennifer Hudson was a curvaceous woman. Jennifer Hudson actually gained 20 pounds for this movie. And very beautiful woman. No question.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, very, very beautiful. And so is Anika Noni Rose and Beyonce. All three very beautiful women. All three have powerhouse voices. I'm not going to deny that Beyonce can't sing. She absolutely can. I just don't like her music. It comes back to Bohemian Rhapsody, where Freddie Mercury wrote Bohemian Rhapsody, and Single Ladies was written by 9 people, and all the song is Single Ladies Put a Ring on it. Anyway, moving on. So we have this turmoil, this jealousy happening behind the scenes, which is a very typical thing. And then, of course, there is always talks of maybe it's happening because they're actually together, this, that, and the other. So after they spend quite some time with Dina in the spotlight as the leader of the Dreamettes and the voice of these three ladies, throughout this time you can see that Effie is just starting to lose her passion for what she's doing, and she ends up walking, and very unfortunately, they end up replacing her rather quickly because she also is not showing up on time. She's very lackluster at rehearsals. She's just not really fully in it like everybody else is. And that's just kind of shitty that they replaced her. But, at the same time, just like Curtis Taylor Jr. says in the movie, I think at least 50 different times, it's just business. Mm-hmm. And, it never ends up being a personal thing. And that was one thing that I actually caught this time around watching Dreamgirls, when Curtis walks up to Effie and she goes, what's going on with this? And he whispers, don't make it personal. And it's like, oh. And then she goes, don't make it personal. How am I supposed to make it, Curtis? And you're just like, oh, yeah, man, how is she supposed to take it, man? What the fuck? Really twisted. It fucking sucks, because the talent's there, but again, the image back then, and maybe even today,
absolutely.
it might not be there. I know there's a lot of curvaceous and plus-size women that are very popular in the world, body positivity, all about that. My wife is on the curvaceous side, so it's interesting to see that as a reason because of somebody is still less talented than somebody. Mm-hmm. It's just fucked up, that stigma really just irritates me.
And that is my absolute favorite scene of Jennifer Hudson's in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
The song,
yeah,
You're Gonna Love Me, made me cry.
Oh, it actually made me cry this time around. I have right here in my notes, You're Going to Love Me, and have in big, bold letters, spectacular. And I always remembered it was great. I saw this movie in theaters. We actually went and saw it at the Dome on Sunset Boulevard. And the theater was pretty packed. We were on the floor level when we saw this movie. And as this scene was unfolding, you could just feel the energy in the theater just really getting into it. And as this song ends, which is when it really, I mean, it takes off so many different times. She really just like, her and Jamie Foxx, when they're singing with each other, is pretty powerful. But then when he ends up leaving her and she's there by herself, just like going just all out, it is so spine tingling. Like, just, you've never heard a song like that sang that way before.
Absolutely.
And I remember at the end of this song in the Dome, as the camera pans away from Jennifer Hudson, the entire theater erupted in a roarous applause. And that was the first time I've ever experienced something like that, because after that, I, about a year later, went to go see Singin' in the Rain at the Arrow in Santa Monica on Montana. And I went with Amy. I had to take her to see Singin' in the Rain in the theaters. And after the first musical number, the place applauded, and they kept applauding. And then when Moses Supposes ended, that's when people started like standing ovation status. And when You're Gonna Love Me ended at the Dome, people gave it a standing ovation. She wasn't there for them to see that. They just were completely over-fucking-whelmed with how absolutely spectacular those last few minutes were, because of how emotionally intense she pulls that song off. And yeah, as I was watching it at home, I had tears streaming down my face, and I got up and did like a walk around the room like, fuck, like I needed to like take a deep breath and just kind of like, wow. I didn't pause the movie, I let it keep going, but I just like, I shook it off. It was one of those moments that you really have an emotional connection to a song, and that was quite fantastic what they portrayed there.
That is actually the main difference between this movie and Rocketman, where Rocketman sings Elton John songs at relevant parts of the movie that really tie into whatever life stage he's in. Mm-hmm. This is words sung in the movie, like a musical on Broadway.
Yeah.
Definitely reminded me of like Rent or Hamilton or what have you. And so that was the main difference between my movie and your movie. For me, though, is that it didn't seem as seamless as Rocketman. It jarred me many times where they broke into song because I was like, oh shit, that's right, it's a musical. It didn't, it wasn't as seamless for me as Rocketman. That's kind of my only critique of this movie. Otherwise, I thought it was great. But yes, it's absolutely singing words, not songs that you would either recognize or even that would have structured lyrics that you're used to.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was Jennifer Hudson's first feature film.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, she was discovered apparently on American Idol, which
I
did not watch any of that horse shit.
Me either.
And I guess she didn't win, so maybe I don't know how the hell she didn't win.
Right?
Anyway, she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars that year, and she took it home. So first feature film, she takes home the Oscar. That's pretty fucking awesome.
Rightly so.
Oh, absolutely.
She stole the shit out of this movie. And
Hell
I think
yeah.
I texted that to you while I was watching this film.
Yeah, and I was like, fuck yeah, she does. She really is a powerhouse.
I have a newfound respect for her. She has a new fan because after watching this movie, I will watch whatever Jennifer Hudson is in. I will listen to any music she puts out. She is an incredible talent.
She really, really is. Very much so. And yeah, as much as, that's another thing too about Dreamgirls that I like is it's one of those movies where there's 4 or 5 different stories going on. You got Effie's story, you got Dina's story, you got Laurel's story, you got Curtis Taylor's Jr. story, you got Cece's story. So they're all happening at once, and very similarly to how we were talking about our war movies, there's a bunch of different stories going on, but they're all put together so well that you don't lose track of anybody.
Absolutely. Very good point. I definitely didn't lose track of anyone. They were interconnected beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Did Eddie Murphy get any nominations for his role?
Eddie Murphy was nominated for an Oscar that year, and he did not win.
I don't know who he was up against, so I can't say whether or not he deserved it, but he absolutely deserved the nomination. It is, we've talked about previously, a comedic actor taking on a serious role and just knocking it out of the park, and he absolutely did it in this film. Definitely.
And one of my favorite scenes is, well, there's several with Eddie Murphy, but he's trying to kind of make a resurgence, and he has this song called Patience that he and Cece wrote. And Cece
such a good song.
He writes all the lyrics for all the songs because he's Effie's brother. Mm-hmm. And so after everything kind of goes down, Jimmy Early is trying to make a comeback, and Cece writes him a song called Patience, and they play it for Curtis, who is now the be-all, end-all of most recording studios in the area. And Curtis turns him down on the song, saying that it sounds good, but it's a message song, and we don't need message songs right now, which just pissed me off because it's a good song, and like you could see like there's a lot of heart and soul going into that because it was Laurel and Jimmy Early. So that scene where Jimmy Early is playing Patience for Curtis and Curtis turns him down, later on Curtis gives Jimmy Early another chance at essentially kind of, a comeback. And it's on a TV show, and he's starting to sing this really kind of sad ballad. And then at one point he kind of stops the band and he goes, no, this ain't Jimmy, come on band, I want you to follow me. And he like starts clapping along and snapping along, and they kind of get into a groove. And then he does this kind of like rap talk about how Jimmy Early does this and Jimmy Early does that, and I thought that was fucking spectacular. I know that Eddie Murphy had a blast doing that because you can just see, and I know there's been a lot of talk about how Eddie Murphy is on set and how he requires certain things for being on certain sets and being in movies and TV shows, but he really does a great job just about every time he's on screen, even if it's the sequel to Coming to America, which was not great. But the year that he was nominated for an Oscar was actually 2007, like I was saying. Dreamgirls was released Christmas Day of 2006. What else was released on Christmas Day of 2006 was another one of my picks, Children of Men. So both of those movies were released in December for Oscar consideration, and both of them did get nominated. Dreamgirls got nominated for several, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But Eddie Murphy was nominated for supporting actor, and he was up against Mark Wahlberg for The Departed, which was one of Mark Wahlberg's shining moments.
Yes, agreed.
In my opinion.
Agreed.
Then we have Alan Arkin for Little Miss Sunshine. I did not like Little Miss Sunshine. Thought that movie was garbage. But Alan Arkin's always entertaining to watch. Eddie Murphy was nominated. We had Jaimin Hansu for Blood Diamond, which was pretty cool. I don't remember Blood Diamond very much, but the fact that Jaimin Hansu was nominated was great. And this actually kind of irritates me about the last nomination because this was the one that won, and I've seen the movie, and the movie's not bad. I just don't see how he won over Eddie Murphy. It was Jackie Earle Haley for Little Children. And I don't know if you saw Little Children or if a lot of people saw Little Children. Little Children is Patrick Wilson and Kate Winslet. They're both married. He's a stay-at-home dad. She's a stay-at-home mom. Jennifer Connelly plays Patrick Wilson's wife, who is the worker. And I can't remember who plays Kate Winslet's husband, who's, the breadwinner in the family. But Little Children is about a married man and a married woman that come together because their children are friends, and they end up having a pretty intense affair.
Oh.
And Jackie Earle Haley plays the neighborhood pedophile. And he is released from prison and maybe has like 17 to 20 minutes on screen in all of Little Children. And I really don't think he deserved to win the Oscar for Little Children. It was always supposed to be Eddie Murphy.
That's really interesting. I haven't seen that film, but I certainly would advocate for Eddie Murphy because I do think he did an exceptional job.
Oh, yeah, and Little Children's not a bad movie. It's a good movie. It's twisted. It's fucked up. But it's still, it's acted very well. It's a very well put-together film. But I really don't think that Jackie Earle Haley deserved to win. Because I don't know. I just don't.
Yeah, that's fair.
So a little bit of history about Dreamgirls. It actually began as a stage play, and there was a lot of talks about turning it into a movie in the late 80s. And in the late 80s, Whitney Houston was considered for the Dina role. Negotiations fell through because she was very adamant and insistent on Dina's character singing most of Effie's songs. And that didn't really work with the producers very much, so they stopped all negotiations and things kind of took a back seat. The 90s came around. Joel Schumacher was set to direct.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, only because of his success with What's Love Got to Do with It, and Lauryn Hill was considered for the role of Dina, which is fascinating. I do like Lauryn Hill. I think she's very talented. Mm-hmm. It was shelved again due to many failed biopics around the time. So early to mid to late 90s up until the early 2000s. And then Chicago came out in 2002, winning Best Picture and a slew of Oscars, rightfully fucking so. And Bill Condon was approached with Dreamgirls, and Bill Condon wrote and directed Chicago. He also did a lot of the choreography for Chicago, which is very impressive because for those of you that have seen Chicago, it's another spectacle of a film. I never, unfortunately, saw it on Broadway. I almost did twice, 2 separate times when I was in New York. I never got to, but I do like the movie quite a bit with Catherine Zeta-Jones, Richard Gere, and Renee Zellweger, Queen Latifah. Very good movie. John C. Reilly. I mean, it's really got a stacked cast, and everybody sings, and the songs are great, and the dance numbers are fucking amazing. I have that on Blu-ray, and I watch that maybe once or twice a year because every now and then I just need a little fucking Chicago in my life. So Bill Condon actually instructed Jennifer Hudson to show up to set late every day because it was part of Effie's personality that she was always on her own time. So Jennifer Hudson adopted that and showed up late on set. They also shot the entire movie, and then the final few days of shooting was when they did the I'm not going, you're gonna love me sequence, because Bill Condon wanted to spend all that time with Jennifer Hudson becoming Effie so that at the end of production they could shoot a powerhouse musical number, and there's the Oscar for you.
Hell yeah.
So congratulations to Bill Condon for that. Yes. And Jennifer Hudson and everybody involved in Dreamgirls, because it's so colorful and it's so just beautiful. Like, the makeup on all the ladies is so good. Eddie Murphy looks handsome as fuck with that haircut. I love his fucking hair.
The period costumes are amazing. So fun.
The cars are great. You know, the time frame, everything like that is awesome. Spike Lee was attached to direct at one point or another in the early 90s. Yeah. Will Smith and Terrence Howard were considered for Curtis Taylor Jr.
I could see Terrence
Jamie
Howard.
Foxx, I could definitely see Terrence Howard. Yeah, I don't know about Will Smith. I only say that because I've seen him so many times comedically and not so many times dramatically.
Yeah, and I don't think he can be slimy enough.
That's also it. You know,
Right?
you look at Will Smith, and granted, the whole thing that's going down now with, you know, the Oscar slap, that is very slimy and fucked up. But yeah, as
But before
from
that, he was
Fresh
so-
Prince, Independence Day,
Like,
and that's
wholesome as shit.
yeah, absolutely. So Terrence Howard, I could definitely see. There's some ruggedness going on there. Jamie Foxx actually turned down the role for Curtis Taylor Jr. because he didn't think the pay was sufficient enough. So they approached Denzel Washington to play Curtis Taylor Jr., and Denzel Washington turned it down. And then Jamie Foxx said, well, if Denzel turned it down, maybe I should take it. And he did, and I'm glad he did because he was really good in it.
Can Denzel sing?
That's why Denzel didn't take the movie.
Okay.
Denzel's on record saying, like, I love the idea, I just can't sing, and I didn't want to be dubbed by anybody else. So I thought that was
very
pretty
noble.
cool. Yeah. The Broadway show opened December 20th, 1981. It ran for over 1,500 performances. It was nominated for Best Musical Score and Best Book of a Musical at the Tony Awards that year. Bill Condon went opening night, December 20th of 1981, to see Dreamgirls on stage.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah. And when he was approached after Joel Schumacher and Chicago had come out, he has considered this a dream project of his. And he did a great fucking job with it. It's a pretty fantastic film.
He really did. The pacing is good. The editing is great. It really came together as a very solid film.
Oh, yeah. And you believe that this actually happened. And the one thing that I was thinking about earlier before we started getting into recording tonight was this is very strongly influenced by Diana Ross and the Supremes. It's also got to be strongly influenced by every other black woman that tried to make it in the 60s as a singer, too. So, you know, there's a lot of authenticity that's going on in Dreamgirls, and that's another thing that I really like. There's definitely that struggle that we see for all of them, including Curtis Taylor Jr., and you watch everybody rise and fall almost together, and I thought that was very interesting.
Yes, and I love that they touch on that social aspect of it and the oppression aspect of it, because towards the beginning of this film, they talk about how their music is written, produced, published, gets popular, and then white recording studios steal their music and put it out with white recording artists that then goes national. And they talk about Elvis.
They do.
And how Hound Dog was written and produced by Big Mama Thornton before he ever sang it.
And that was the crazy thing, too. Cece, the writer of all the music, Effie's brother, after Kurt's like, who was the first person to sing Hound Dog? He goes, Elvis Presley. He goes,
Yeah, I love
and
that.
he's schooling him on it, and you just like watch Cece's face like, oh shit, because and they touched on that very wonderfully in Elvis as well. So again, you know, we both saw Elvis, but we didn't pick it as a movie to discuss, but we definitely had a pretty good conversation after we both had finally seen Elvis, and that was one of the touching subjects that we talked about, was how, I mean, the Cadillac car song, it's, you know, it's a great song when the Dreamettes sing it, and then all of a sudden it's like, got me a Cadillac car. It's like,
I will say, like,
whited down.
For lack of a better term, the white version was terrible.
The white version was so bad. So bad. So yeah, that, you know, all a part of history. Again, you know, it's a fictitious story happening in a real world, and that's a very cool thing about this film. It did have 8 Oscar nominations on top of the 2 that we talked about, which Jennifer Hudson won for. Eddie Murphy was nominated. It was nominated for art direction and costume design. Didn't win for either of those. It was also nominated for 3 of the original songs, which were Listen, Love You I Do, and Patience, which is the song that we mentioned Eddie Murphy brings to Curtis Taylor Jr. to try and rehash his career. And that's pretty much majority of Dreamgirls there. It had a $70 million budget. The U.S. total gross was $103.3 million. The worldwide gross was $155 million, which is pretty awesome. That's definitely making the budget back. And a little bit about the cast. Eddie Murphy, for those that may not know, started out in SNL. He has Coming to America, Beverly Hills Cop, the Nutty Professor remake in the 90s, which was pretty fantastic. He was in Showtime, Norbit, which I actually am a very big fan of Norbit. He did the voice of Mushu in Mulan, and another movie that I think is really fucking hilarious. It's got Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin. It's called Bowfinger. Have you seen Bowfinger, V?
Mm-mm.
Okay, you got to watch Bowfinger. It's a great cast. Heather Graham's in it too. It's about the entertainment industry, and I recommend you check it out.
Huh, okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, either I'll check it out independently or it'll be on the list at some point.
There you go. And Dreamgirls was number 37 for the year 2007. The
Nice.
highest grossing film I think we actually talked about for 2007. It was one of a series of movies from Marvel in 2006.
It's not Spider-Man 3, is it?
It is Spider-Man 3.
Oh, that was number 1 of the year?
That was number 1, highest grossing of 2007.
Oh,
and then
awful.
Shrek 3, was the second.
That's also a terrible movie.
Yes.
Both of those
and then,
are number 3s. Both of those are terrible. That's funny because Bryce Dallas Howard is in Spider-Man 3. She plays Gwen Stacy.
That's right, she is.
But that is one of the worst Spider-Man movies ever made.
It really is. Yeah, it's bad.
God, it's so cringy.
Transformers was next on the list, which I actually like the first Transformers.
The first one was good.
Yeah, Pirates at World's End. I like that one quite a bit.
That was also a
it's
good movie.
Pretty twisted and dark. Number 37, as we said, Dreamgirls. Number 59 was No Country for Old Men, which I saw in theaters and thought was also a pretty great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Number 30 was the Eddie Murphy-led Norbit, which makes me laugh every time because I have it on DVD. And number 66 of 2007 was a pick of yours, and it was an earlier pick of yours, and I wonder if you can get it. Earlier pick of yours within the first 5 episodes.
Was it Stardust?
It was Stardust.
No way.
Yeah, number 66 of 2007.
Oh, gosh, that's great. I remember it not doing great, like lower than expected, or at least like that's awesome. I didn't know it broke the top 100 because that's usually something that you research and I don't. So
Right, yes. No, I was glad to see that hit the top 100 as well.
Me too. That's fantastic.
It is, yeah. So that's Dreamgirls, again, written and directed by Bill Condon, starring Beyonce Knowles, Anika Noni Rose, Jennifer Hudson, Eddie Murphy, Jamie Foxx, and Danny Glover. Very good movie. Give it a shot if you can. It's on Amazon and Hulu. You can rent it for $3.99. I highly recommend it. It does hold up because how can you not love a movie like this?
I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad you introduced it to me and finally got me to watch it.
As am I, definitely. 2 good movies that we got to watch this week.
And you mentioned how this is a fictional movie, but it's probably happened from time to time.
Yeah.
And as we know, because we both love music, band members get replaced all the time in the music industry. There are egos, there are fights, there are drug problems, there are tragedies like Taylor Hawkins, the drummer for Foo Fighters, who recently passed away. And so one of the things that I thought of a lot about while I was watching this film is that I've mentioned my grandfather, Ross, who was in the film industry back in its old school days and even worked on the Carol Burnett show. He also helped produce the first live Olympics.
Oh, wow.
That were shown live on TV. And he was married to my grandmother, Joyce. Her name was Joyce DeYoung, who was a lovely, beautiful woman inside and out. And she was also a singer. And she was part of the Andrews Sisters.
Oh, wow.
Because one of the Andrews sisters, Laverne, the oldest one, died of cancer in the 60s.
My gosh.
And so my grandmother Joyce replaced her and sang for the Andrews Sisters for many years. She was on the Dean Martin Show, a lot of variety shows, and also sang for several presidents, including Eisenhower and Johnson, and had been at the White House. And so while I was watching the Dreamgirls, it reminded me of my grandmother because she was the replacement.
That's awesome.
And it happens all the time. And so even though this is a fictional story, it is absolutely based on truth.
Yeah, definitely. That's crazy. Thank you for telling me that. I had no idea.
Yeah, she was a wonderful human being. She passed away at 87 in 2014. And her husband, who adored her and was utterly devoted to her, my grandpa Ross, died just a couple years later.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really happy to, from time to time when the opportunity arises, tell some stories about them because they were both part of Old Hollywood.
Hell yeah. I have nobody in my family part of Old Hollywood. I was the black sheep redheaded stepchild that went into it on my own.
Don't worry, you still are.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, and for our audience, I know a lot of people worry about this, and it is certainly prevalent in the industry, so I understand the concern. I certainly was not a product of nepotism. My grandparents were very long retired from the film industry and living in Northern California by the time I started putting my toe in the industry. So,
oh wow, that's crazy.
Not a product of nepotism, I swear. Unlike Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yes, goodness gracious.
So that about wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're a first-time listener, thanks for pushing play. If you're a repeat listener, thank you so much for coming back. For everyone, please rate, review, and subscribe. It is so important. It helps us so much, and we do deeply appreciate it. We both get a kick out of it every time we read a new review. So please, if you have a couple spare minutes out of your day, we would really appreciate hearing from you. And you can find us on all social media at Movies You Miss Pod, as well as at Gmail. If you want to shoot us an email with any suggestions or feedback, we'd love to hear that too.
Yes, we absolutely would. Please do.
And next week, for those of you who've listened in before or who know me, know that I'm not the biggest fan of horror. However, John is.
Yes, I am.
And I am getting out of my comfort zone because next month, for the month of October, we are doing a horror month of movies.
I can't wait for this one.
John is going to be introducing me to a ton of good horror movies that he has picked since he knows so many of them. It is one of your favorite genres, right?
It is, actually, yes. And only within the last, 10 years of my life.
Okay.
I wasn't big on horror before, but something clicked, and I really got into it big time.
Well, I'm happy for you, kind of. We'll see how this next month goes and how traumatized I become because of it.
Very true.
And then I'll let you know.
Sounds good.
So next week, I am going to be picking What Lies Beneath. It is a horror thriller from the year 2000 starring Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch it with an HBO Max subscription or rent it on other streaming services. And one thing that I do think is a positive out of this next month is that you will probably be choosing very intense, scary, real horror films, and I will be probably going a little bit on the lighter side. So for any of our audience who aren't generally fans of horror, you might still get a kick out of some of the films that I pick.
I think that's definitely going to be the case.
Okay, good.
I chose a doozy. I chose the 2018 Toni Collette, Gabriel Byrne, Alex Wolff-led masterpiece, written and directed by Ari Aster. This will be Hereditary. And I know V hasn't seen this one.
Of course
and
not.
I have many times. But I will tell you this, every time I watch it, it still scares the ever-living hell out of me.
Great.
Yeah.
So
a nice light fare for your Sunday afternoon.
You're just throwing me right in the deep end, aren't you?
Yeah, might as well start pretty intense, Like you rip the Band-Aid off and then you kind of put the ointment on after that.
Okay. I might not get much sleep during the month of October. However, I have heard that is an exceptional film. So despite needing to probably watch it with all the lights on, I am looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, the rules of our October month of horror films is to watch all of the picks in the dark with our phones put away.
Yes, that is the rule. I am following it, and I just hope you check on me from time to time.
I definitely will.
Thank you, friend.
Because I'll get good laughs out of it. And you can actually watch Hereditary if you have a Showtime or Paramount Plus subscription. And I recommend that anybody that hasn't seen it and that's heard anything about it to give it a shot. I will be watching my Blu-ray copy that I received from my sister for Christmas one year.
I will be watching it on Showtime On Demand.
Sounds good. Well, that about wraps her up. And as we like to sign off, film is a form of art, and in all art, every opinion is valid. Except if you think
only girls or theater buffs will enjoy musical movies.
Ah, that's a good one. I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. I've enjoyed musicals since the Disney era, obviously, but even after that, I've been a big fan of watching musicals. I've always liked the classical musicals, even some of the newer ones, like these last two.
Yeah, don't shut yourself off from genres maybe you aren't familiar with or have assumed that you won't enjoy. Give one of these films a chance. They're both very good.
They are indeed. Thank you guys very much for joining us on this episode. Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.